Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you could find. I am your host, Nick. You are listening to episode 120 of Talking Blue. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a great show for you guys today. We are here to recap the Dodgers and the Rockies and actually talk about a lot of things, as you could tell by the title of the video. We're going to do a lot of injury updates in the beginning. We'll get to some games. I'm also, in between all that, am going to talk about Edwin Diaz and Kyle Tucker and their struggles and kind of break down those two things, really Kyle Tucker specifically, and as well as all the things that took place in this series between the Dodgers and the Rockies. The Dodgers do sweep, so they do exactly what we wanted them to do: take care of a bad team, go into Denver, get hot, get the bats hot. They did do that. We're going to talk a lot about Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, as well as Blake Snell and Roki Sasaki. So stay tuned for all those breakdowns and a ton of things. We have a lot of info to get to. So as always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. I tweet all things baseball and about the Dodgers. A lot of breakdowns on there as well. So, like I said, let's waste no time. Let's get to all this information. I'm going to start with some injury updates. There are some big updates, some really good things, guys who returned, guys who are about to return, and some updates on other guys who are currently on the IL, some new guys on the IL, of course. Then I'm going to get to the games, and like I said, after game one, because that's when a lot of the Edwin Diaz, Tucker stuff, kind of makes sense to talk about that. I'm going to do a pretty big breakdown on both of those. I hope it doesn't get too confusing or awkward. I tried to figure out a way to talk about the games and talk about those two players, Tucker and Diaz. Honestly, those two guys they kind of deserve their own podcast, their own episode. I could talk about those guys all day, but I got to try to keep things moving because I have a lot of info to get to, so just stay with me and I'll give out the info very smoothly. So the roster injury stuff, of course, the first one, Edwin Diaz, he was placed on the 15-day IL with right neck inflammation. Flew back to Los Angeles. This was after game one on Monday. Flew back to LA to get testing. It's already came out. MRI showed no structural damage. It'll be interesting to see if, like Justin Robleski, I said this a few days ago, is this a little bit of a phantom IL? Obviously, no teams will ever come out and say that because you could get in a lot of trouble for doing something like that. Is it a phantom IL / reset? I'm going to get to all this in a minute with Diaz when I get through the first game, and then a couple other breakdowns, and I'm going to talk about all this. But we'll see how this progresses. Is this an actual neck injury? Is it a more of a let's go down and get some work in and try to fix some things? Maybe it is a little bit of a neck issue. Come back in September and get ready to roll. We'll see. But that is the update on Diaz. Doesn't really seem too bad, in my opinion. Justin Robleski, there is not really a new update since he hit the IL with the forearm inflammation. Still waiting to hear those next steps. Again, similar to, like I just said about Diaz, there is a chance Robleski was kind of placed on the IL just for, innings, threw a lot of innings, give him a little bit of a rest. I do believe there is more of a thing with Robleski because it's forearm soreness, but I do believe he said that he could have even gone out and pitched or something to that effect they said on the broadcast. So in my mind, again, didn't really seem like too much of a big deal, but still something to follow. Not really any new updates on Robleski. Shohei Ohtani, he threw a 35-pitch bullpen on Tuesday. I believe there were also up downs, so you throw a few pitches, kind of simulate like you're throwing to a hitter, then you sit down like the inning just ended, then you get back up. So more than what a regular bullpen is, but not necessarily facing live hitters. Next steps will be to face live hitters probably next week, and then after that is where things get pretty exciting, to where I would imagine in the next 2 weeks or so you could actually see Ohtani back on the mound, probably like we saw last year in the beginning of 2025. Pitching more of an opener role, starting the game, going in innings, stuff like that. We'll see how built up he can actually get before the postseason eventually rolls around. That'll be an interesting thing to kind of maneuver, but that'll be something to keep your eyes on. Dalton rushing, similar to Robleski, not necessarily any new updates on his elbow and all, the pain in his throwing elbow. I would think, in a couple of days we'll actually get something concrete onto what's going on with him, some kind of update, but nothing really on him. Tyler Glasnow, this is the biggest one. He threw 5.1 innings pitched last night in his final rehab assignment. 77 pitches. He struck out 9, and he sat 95.5 miles an hour, touched 97. All great signs. I believe in his prior rehab, too, he had a lot of swing and miss and strikeouts, too. So he's gotten pretty, built up to a pretty good spot. He will definitely be back and activated next week. It'll either be against the Tigers early in the week, like Tuesday, Wednesday, or they could wait to have him pitch over the weekend in Atlanta against the Braves. So he will be back. That is an update or an activate. He'll be activated in a couple days. That'll be exciting. Will Klein, still no recent updates on Will Klein. Like I've said before, unfortunately, I think he's done for 2026. I'm not really sure, between his elbow and not a lot of updates, it does seem like at some point we'll get some kind of update that says surgery was done or is about to be done or he's shut down for the year. I don't really have anything on him. Brock Stewart, he was activated before Wednesday's game and actually pitched an inning on Wednesday, one clean inning. That's great. He looked very good. He could be big for the Dodgers considering that he's a right-handed reliever. Will Smith still is in LA. He's still in Los Angeles, continuing to build up on the rehab. Could go on a rehab assignment as soon as next week. It actually looked like he will, and that's a great sign. We will definitely see him at some point in September. Great signs there. And then the last guy, Blake Trinan, probably pretty close after he's had a handful of rehab assignments. Hasn't looked too great in his rehabs. And if you look at the Dodgers depth chart in their bullpen, they actually don't have many options at this point to kind of maneuver. Emmett Sheehan was recalled during the series when Edwin Diaz went on the IL. He's kind of like a part of the bullpen now. The only really obvious option is optioning Kyle Hurt, but Hurt has looked great recently. He pitched a really good inning last night, and Trinan, like the velo hasn't been that great down in the minor league, so that'll be an interesting scenario to see what happens there, especially even like down the stretch. I imagine they'll give him a chance because of his track record to see what he can do, and then if he looks good, then he could be a part of some October plans. But some difficult decisions going on in the couple days, but they could also wait until like September 1st for a lot of these really difficult decisions, like with possibly bringing back Robleski or Diaz or something like that with the rosters expanding. So that'll really help. But let's get into these games and let's kind of, start all these things that I'm going to talk about. So game 1, that was on Monday night. Blake Snell against Sugano, the Japanese right-hander of the Rockies. Dodgers got on the board first in this game thanks to an RBI double for Mookie Betts. 1-0 Dodgers. Later in the third inning, an RBI single from Andy Pages, and then right after that, a big 3-run homer from Max Muncy, his 25th home run of the year, makes it 5-0. A 461-foot shot. He kind of crushes the ball in Colorado like Ohtani. In the bottom of the third, the Rockies would get on the board. Jake McCarthy, an RBI ground out, makes it 5-1. I think this was when Blake Snell actually walked the bases loaded, but was able to actually pitch out of it and only allow one earned run. Later in the fifth inning, a solo shot from Shohei makes it 6-1. Then an RBI ground out for Mookie Betts makes it 7-1. And then another home run from Ohtani, his 29th of the year, makes it 9-1. Another ball that was crushed. So a two-homer game for him. Andy Paz, an RBI single, makes it 10-1. The Rockies would tally on some runs later on. Seventh inning, they make it 10-2. Freddie Freeman makes it 11-2. We go to the ninth inning. This is one of the talking points I'm going to get to in a sec. Edwin Diaz comes in for the ninth to try to get some work in with a big lead, big cushion. He gives up 3 earned runs. It becomes an 11-5 game. He eventually ends the game, and the Dodgers win by a score of 11-5. And that was all for that game. Blake Snell goes 6, Vesia for 1, Evan Phillips for 1, Edwin Diaz for 1. So I'm going to first talk about Blake Snell, a couple things that I've noticed on him. Then I will talk about Kyle Tucker and Edwin Diaz. Okay, so Blake Snell, he looked fantastic again. Let me give you his final line. He goes 6 innings pitched in this game, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, did not allow any home runs. He had 17 whiffs in Colorado, which is very impressive given how difficult of a pitcher park that is. I should say it's a hitter's park. especially 6 on his curveball. Again, when you consider the context, curveballs are usually a pitch in Colorado that you don't see pitchers use a lot or suggested not to because of the altitude and the way that it affects the ball. The ball obviously flies in Colorado, but it also affects the pitchers in the way that the ball spins. Usually those big breaking balls, curveballs, sweepers, 12-6, stuff like that, usually drop way less, and it usually makes for bad cement mix type breaking balls. So you don't see a lot of guys go to that pitch in Colorado. Blake Snell, though, his curveballs look fantastic. All right, and somehow in his 11th season, his curveball might be the best it's ever looked. Okay, so if you take a look at a metric called Stuff Plus on Fangraphs, shout out Fangraphs. I always use their website for a lot of things. All right, Stuff Plus is a thing, I've talked about this before, a metric that grades individual pitches based on velocity and movement and all that stuff. 100 is average, like a lot of analytical stats, so anything over 100 Stuff Plus suggests that the pitch has very good movement in terms of the vertical movement, the break, the spin rate, the velocity, and all that stuff. So in his career, his curveball has an average Stuff Plus of 121, which is obviously fantastic. So far in 2026, his curveball has a Stuff Plus of 148, the best of his career, suggesting the stuff on his curveball is the best it has ever been. That is pretty crazy. Blake Snell has actually been around a lot longer than you might think. He debuted in 2016. Some of the numbers that show why it has taken another step. So the active spin percentage, okay, that means every bit of spin on the ball that helps it spin that much, okay, it's up from 60 to 66 in 2026. That is the active spin percentage. Usually that is something measured for elite breaking balls like Blake Snell has, okay. The total movement is up from 15.8 inches to 16.7 inches. And then the vertical break, which just means how much of the ball is dropping downwards, vertical movement, the vertical break has gone from negative 6.7 to negative 8.2. Okay, so obviously the drop, negative, inches, you guys get it, all right? The velocity is the same, 80.5 miles an hour, but he's changed the shape on the curveball by adding a little bit more vertical break, thus adding to the Stuff Plus and making it more of a nastier pitch per se. So I found that very interesting, and it's actually noticeable on the television. Like when you are watching him these last 2 games, his curveball looks sharper, like bigger in a way, but not like bigger and slower and loopier. It's like almost like a Tyler Glasnow curveball with a little bit more sideways movement than a 12-6 over the top curveball. That's more of the curveball that Glasnow and Kershaw used to have, So interesting stuff from his curveball. The whiff rate on the curveball has gone from 45.7 to 51.6. All right, so the whiff rate has actually jumped up a lot. The expected WOBA is down from 238 last year to 087. Okay. Oh, and by the way, his fastball is averaging 96.2 miles an hour, the highest of his career. The highest. All right. First time he's ever averaged 96. You go and look at his Baseball Savant page every year since 2016, it's 95 or maybe 94. 96.2. First time he's ever averaged that in his career, and it's very noticeable. You see his fastball. It is sitting 96 to 98 like the entire game, and it looks very, very explosive. Okay, that pitch has a 180 expected batting average, and the Stuff Plus on that pitch, Stuff Plus I just mentioned a second ago, also the highest since 2022. That is his four-seam fastball. So he looks healthy, strong, dominant. The league should be put on notice the way that Blake Snell has come off this IL. And with the addition soon of Tyler Glasnow, the starting rotation, I wouldn't be shocked. They've already been great all year. Top 6 ERA in baseball, and then starting pitching-wise, I think they are top 4. Taking a hit the last couple weeks because they haven't been as great, but still much better than a year ago where they were like 15th in team ERA or something like that. Night and day difference this year with the rotation because they've been a little bit more healthy. But with the addition of Skubal, Glasnow's about to return. Snell just got back. Don't be surprised if you see the Dodgers rotation kind of go on a very similar run that we saw last year in August and September where they carried them down the stretch. Like Glasnow, Snell, and Yamamoto and Ohtani were just dominating games night in and night out, and it carried all the way into the postseason. Don't be surprised if you see something similar to that this year. So quickly, the offense definitely broke out in this game, put up obviously 11 runs, and for the most part throughout the series, the offense looked very good, which is what you want to see going to Colorado with the offensive struggles as of late. You wanted to see the offense look good. Ohtani, 4 for 5, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs. Freddie Freeman, he went 3 for 5 in this game. Andy Paez, 3 for 4 on base 4 times. Max Muncy, 2 for 4 with the homer. And then Mookie Betts had a double and 2 RBIs. Offense was great in this game. But let's get to a lot of the talking points that kind of were brought to the surface, I would say, after this game. Okay, kind of stuff that has been manifesting for a couple of weeks and obviously all season to a certain extent. Kyle Tucker and Edwin Diaz. Okay, the struggles of those two players. Tucker went 0 for 5 Monday night. That would stretch his hitless streak at that time to 0 for 25. 0 for his last 25. He also dropped a routine fly ball in right field. If you guys were watching, you've seen the video. It was last Sunday against the Brewers where he dropped one up against the fence. Should have been caught, absolutely, but was a little bit, kind of up against the wall. Not like a routine fly ball. This ball in Colorado was a straight-up routine fly ball that he caught like around his ankles, dropped the ball just straight up, like, what are you doing kind of moment. Edwin Diaz came into the ninth of a blowout game and gave up 3 earned runs on 4 hits. Okay, so we know that the Dodgers have struggled as of late, no question. Kind of gone on a similar run that they went on last year down the stretch in August and September. We know what happened last year. It has been as bad this year because if you go back to exactly a year ago, the same amount of games played, they have like 5 or 6 more wins. So it hasn't been as bad this year. They have definitely been a better team this year as a whole. And they've had a great season. I would say, looking at it objectively. They have a lot of great players, and I still think they have as good a chance as anyone to go and win their 3rd straight World Series. But it has to be said that part of the season, part of the storyline are these two players, Kyle Tucker, Edwin Diaz. Okay, the 2 biggest disappointments of the Dodgers this season have been the 2 biggest free agents that they brought in this past offseason. I think the only free agents they brought in, if I'm not mistaken. With their recent struggles, the media has been super loud with the criticism for both of these players as of late. Okay, so I'm going to start with Edwin Diaz because it's a little shorter and a little bit more simple to me, okay, kind of to sum up his whole season and his struggles, okay? Now, he's been worse than Tucker has in their own aspects. Like, his numbers as a closer look way worse than Tucker's, but it's a little, it requires more context than that. So, to me, Edwin Diaz, the story about him is pretty simple. Relief pitching is the most volatile position in baseball, meaning so many relievers are elite one year and then are horrible the next year and then go back to being good. And then, and Edwin Diaz, who has been a consistently dominant closer, has also had down seasons. His first year in New York, 2019, he had an ERA like a 5. Okay, and you can even look at his seasons that he wasn't as dominant, and then there are seasons that he was historical. Go back and look at his 2022. He had like a 50% strikeout rate. Okay, so he's had dominant stretches, not so dominant stretches. He has been volatile, not to the extent of a kind of average reliever. He has always been, for the most part, a dominant closer, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, he has had an injury-plagued season, and he's been terrible in 13 innings pitched. Okay, so this neck injury that he now has, which could possibly be some sort of a phantom IL, I'm not saying that it is, but possible. This neck injury is going to be, to me, his last chance to get things figured out this season. When he comes back at some point in September, that will basically be his last audition to be a part of the postseason roster. Okay, the Dodgers have had players in the past who were not as good as you would have thought throughout the regular season, and they had to make some tough decisions. Famously, 2022, when they had an incredible team. The one disappointing aspects of that team, other than guys like Bellinger who underperformed, but Craig Kimbrell, acquired from the White Sox, was horrible all season, start of the year, end of the year, and by the time the postseason came around, they made the tough decision to keep him off the playoff roster. A year ago, this guy's not as big in name as these guys, but Michael Conforto, bad all season, couldn't justify having him on the playoff roster, and he wasn't on it. Diaz, it's a little difficult because he's a bigger name than those guys, okay? But to me, when he comes back at some point in September, that will be his last audition. Come back, show us that you can be healthy, show us that you can make these changes. It's not going to take a lot for Diaz to get hot, basically. Like, get his mechanics in place, the velocity, and show us, oh, he looks good. Okay, and we can run with this. Because, again, it's only been 13 innings pitched. So if he can go down, get a little more healthy, get better, get the mechanics in line, whatever he needs to fix, come back and show us in September for a good stretch of games that he is ready and that he is back, then that's great. If he comes back and it's much more of the same, then I think they will have to make the decision that he can't be on the postseason roster, unfortunately. And, maybe it's an injury again, or maybe it's just he's not pitching good enough. Because you can't have a guy who has pitched the way he has lately, high leverage, low leverage, whatever it is, tie game. You can't have that guy come in to game one of the postseason let's say in the division series in a one-run game, and you're throwing him out there. Nobody in the dugout, in the ballpark, is going to have confidence that the game's going to get nailed down. And I think they would make that decision if he continued to pitch like this. So, and on top of that, I think the Dodgers could win the World Series without Edwin Diaz as their closer. I think they have enough. It doesn't look as good lately because the bullpen hasn't been as good, but Tanner Scott has been amazing as the closer this year, and they have a lot more depth. And I think that what a lot of people forget going into postseasons at time is that there are many postseason teams, many teams that have gone on deep runs and won the World Series who went into a postseason not really sure of what the bullpen was going to look like. In 2023, the Rangers won the World Series. They had no idea what their bullpen was going to look like. It was Aroldis Chapman, Prey, and everybody else. And Jose Leclerc ended up being their closer, basically. The 2021 Braves didn't have like a shutdown bullpen. Guys get hot. That happens. And the Dodgers have a lot of options, whether they go into the postseason and, the pen has been stronger and come together. Guys have gotten much more in line to what we expect, or they continue to struggle. They're still going to have a ton of options, throwing Roki Sasaki out there, blah, blah, blah. So to me, they could go into the postseason without Edwin Diaz, on the roster and could still win a World Series in my mind. Now, don't get me wrong. If he's there and he's looking like Edwin Diaz, that makes things a lot better. You get Scott, to the 7th or 8th inning, and Vesia, and all those guys go down a notch, and it makes things much more smooth. So that's, to me, Edwin Diaz's season in a nutshell. Hasn't been great. It's been filled with injuries, horribly disappointing. I still think there's a last little bit of hope that he could turn it around and be a part of the roster. He's going to have basically one last audition. We'll see how it plays out. But to me, I think they could still win the World Series without him. Okay. Now the Kyle Tucker situation, it has reached a different level, and it is much more complex than Edwin Diaz. Okay. I usually don't try to play therapist with players and get into their heads. I don't like that. I think that's not a good position to be in. You never know what a guy's thinking. I don't really do stuff like that normally, but there's no doubt that this is getting in the head of Kyle Tucker at this point. Okay, we all know the season that he has had. It's been a struggle for him from the start, but it wasn't until the last couple weeks for him the national media has begun to criticize him. If you pay attention to ESPN and MLB Network and a lot of talk shows, radio shows, podcasts, the social media, it's almost like the national media is kind of caught up to how bad his season's been, the defense as of late, and there's been a lot of conversation about it, and it's been ramped up the last week or so. A lot of people, have their theories. Is the pressure of a big market getting to him? Is the pressure of the big contract he just signed? Is it the pressure of playing and joining the back-to-back World Series champions? Honestly, who knows, right? To me, I think that when a guy, the talk of a player trying to justify his contract first year, the pressure, I think that's a little overrated and overplayed. I actually think players put more pressure on themselves in their free agent year and their walk year because they want to have a good year to get the money that they want. 2024, Juan Soto was a free agent. He put up the best season of his career. Not that he wasn't going to get paid, but perfect time to have your best season of your career. And a lot of guys right now in the Yankees, Jazz Chisholm, who last year hit 30 home runs, stole 30 bases. Right now he's had a really bad season. And I would imagine the pressure of performing in his walk year is getting to him. So I think that is more of a pressure thing than playing in that first year of the contract. You got your money. Now, obviously, from the fans' perspective, that is where the fans are saying, you got to prove to us that you're this kind of player. And when you're not playing good, they're going to boo you. They don't have the love strings attached to you as some other guys. This is your first year. So that is where I think, the fans could get to you, but I don't really think he has that pressure in his head of living up to the contract. I think that's a different thing. But anyways, trying to get into a player's head, who knows? The bigger question to me is, why has this happened? And what's the reason for this massive drop-off in production in his game? What has been the difference, okay? So when you take a deep dive, you don't have to look too hard to see that everything across the board is down from 2025, okay, which wasn't even his best season. 2024, 2022, 2023, those were the best seasons of his career. So simply, his barrel rate is down. It's cut in half, 10.8 to 5.9. That's bad. Hard hit rate is down from 40% to 37%. The average exit velocity is down from 90 to 88. The expected slug is down 100 points, 483, 383. The expected WOBA is down from 372 to 327. His K rate is up 4%. This is a guy that never strikes out a lot. He still doesn't have a high strikeout rate, but it's up 4%. 14.7, 18.7. His walk rate is also down from 14.6 to 12.6. So he's not bearing up the ball as much, not hitting it as hard. The average exit velocity is down. The expected numbers, he's striking out more, and he's walking less. A complete disaster of a recipe, and there's no way to have a good season when all of that stuff takes place, or at least to have your normal season. Let's look even deeper under the hood, though, okay? His chase rate. All right, this is a guy who's always controlled the strike zone throughout his career. His chase rate was 17.6 in 2025. That was fourth best in baseball. Top 4 lowest chase rate. It is up to 25% in 2026, which is still good. Okay, that's still top 30 in baseball. Okay, I just want to get that out there. But it is much of a drop-off of the elite top 5 that he was at last year. He has also been much more aggressive this year. Okay, so again, usually as a patient hitter who walks a lot, great plate discipline. He's been more aggressive this year, though. So on the first pitch, his first pitch swing percentage is up from 36.3 to 42.1. Much more aggressive on the first pitch. His overall swing percentage is up from 45 to 48.9. So basically 49%. Almost up 5% swing in the bat more. Now the quality of contact, because this is key. His ground ball rate is up from 33% to 37.8. The air percentage, okay? So that means everything that is not a ground ball, line drives, pop-ups, fly balls, is down, from 66% to 62%. Pull percentage is down, 45%, 42%. Pull air percentage. This is a big one. I always talk about this with hitters and pitchers. Pulling the ball in the air leads to what? Home runs. 24% last year, it's down to 20.6%. In 2024, he had a pull air percentage of 26%. So it's down 6% of the time from his best season, which was 2 years ago. Okay, another thing. This is something I saw from Tom Verducci on MLB Network, so credit to him. I love his stuff. He's not crushing the ball down in the zone like he used to, okay? Left-handed hitters traditionally love the ball down and in, like Ken Griffey Jr. throughout his career. You can watch so many hitters nowadays, left-handed hitters that handle the ball down and in. It's kind of easier to drop the barrel of the bat down and pull that ball out of the ballpark. Kyle Tucker, that is something he used to do. If you look at his slug on pitches down in the zone, so in 2023 it was 534. 2024 556. Those are massive. 2025 took a step back, 412. Not as great, still okay. This year he is slugging 261. 261 slug on pitches down in the strike zone. So, after all those numbers, he is chasing more, not hitting the ball as hard, hitting the ball on the ground more, hitting less pulled fly balls, and he's not crushing that traditional lefty down and in pitch. All of that has dropped off substantially. To me, the under-the-hood things that matter the most are the chase rate. I think he needs to be a little bit less aggressive on the first pitch especially, see more pitches, and be more patient and rely on that great eye that he's had in the past. And maybe pull the ball a little bit more, and obviously you got to try to hit the ball in the air more and pull the ball to the air side a little bit more. Obviously easier said than done. I'm not saying that he's trying to go the other way, but I think that when you're pressing, when you feel the pressure of trying to dig yourself out of a season like this, you naturally chase more, you force the issue, you chase pitches down in the zone more that normally you're hitting, but now you're chasing those changeups, those sliders down underneath the strike zone. And I think that all comes together, and it accumulates into all this that has taken place. So, everybody knows about his home road splits. That's been another thing that's become huge the last couple weeks. On the road, he's hitting 363, or his on base is 363, 820 OPS, 126 WRC plus. That's still not fully Kyle Tucker, but much closer to normal Kyle Tucker. At home, he has a 286 on base, a 558 OPS, and a 60 WRC plus. 60. That is 40 points below league average. And by the way, that is by far the worst hitter in baseball in their home ballpark. Okay. He finished up the road trip pretty solid. I'll get to it in a couple minutes with these other games. Can he put something together this weekend at home, and then they will go back on the road? Like, it'd be nice to see him have a big series against the Pirates this weekend, then go back on the road against the Tigers and Braves, continue to play good on the road, and then, finish up the season. Look, at this point, it is a lost season from Kyle Tucker, and he needs to take some advice from his teammate, Mookie Betts, of last year. When Mookie was struggling, I know Mookie still struggled this year, but he was struggling in 2025, and he realized in early August, there's nothing I could do at this point to, save my season stats. It is what it is. It's going to be a bad year. From this point on, I could just try to help the team, have a good bat every time, take it one at-bat at a time, one pitch at a time, try to, play well from this point on out and into the postseason. That's all Kyle Tucker can do. I think he could still do it. I still think he could be a great player. I still think there are things about his game suggest he could be the Kyle Tucker of old. It's going to be one of those things that for the rest of the year we're going to keep an eye on into the postseason, and then next year that'll be a topic next year. Can Kyle Tucker have a bounce back season? This is nowhere near over. So I still believe he could do it. The defense has been odd. I think it's a little overblown, his defense. A lot of people haven't, again, when people who don't necessarily maybe watch every day, like national media people start to say, well, this guy's always been an elite defender, and now he's like -8 outs above average. Well, if you pay more closely attention, he hasn't really been an elite defender since like 2022. There's no excuse to be that bad, but he was more of a average to slightly below average defender in recent years. That it's still no excuse to be that bad, but if he was hitting, I wouldn't even care, to be honest. But when you're not hitting and then you play that bad at defense, it makes you a huge negative in terms of F4 and all that stuff. So, hopefully we look back to all this at the end of the year and say, wow, he took off after that, or he had multiple big hits in the postseason, whatever. But, I really like Kyle Tucker. I know that the Dodgers get a lot of – they're very polarizing nowadays. The fans of Dodger fans love them. A lot of the other fans around baseball now don't like them. They spend a lot of money. They have a lot of great players. They win a lot. It's just part of today's world. And, I see Tucker get a lot of hate and criticism for his contract. And to me, he just seems like a normal guy. Very like mundane personality, quiet. LA is definitely a big market. That I could see that getting to him, but it is without a fact not the kind of market that New York is, like the Yankees playing for them or the Mets. It's not really the same. And it also is, what's different is he didn't join a team that he kind of has to be the savior for or the face of the franchise. He went to a team that has multiple superstars. So it's odd that this has happened for sure. But he can turn it around. I believe in him. I know that. And I'm pulling for him every time he steps up to the plate. So a lot of conversations on game one. Let's try to keep things moving and speed it up from here on out. And we'll go to game two, which was Tuesday night. That was Eric Lauer taking on Ryan Feltner. Dodgers got on the board first in the first inning. Sac fly from Max Muncy. or from Max Muncy, foul territory. Freddie Freeman tagged up, makes it 1-0. Rockies would tie the game in the first. They make it 1-1, double from Cole Carrig. In the third inning, though, Ohtani hits his third home run of this series, his 30th home run of the year, 2-run shot to make it 3-1. Right after that, the Rockies would respond, though, scoring 2 in the bottom of the third to make it a 3-3 game. Tucker finally breaks out, snapping an 0 for 26. Double down the right field line makes it 4-3. Right after that, Teoscar Hernandez doubles to make it 5-3. A Freddie Freeman sac fly makes it 6-3. Rockies would get back into this game, though, and a solo home run from Willie Castro. Freddie Freeman with another RBI single makes it 7-4. In the eighth inning, Zach Fiend with an RBI single makes it 7-5. Willie Castro in the bottom of the ninth off of Tanner Scott makes it 7-6. But the Dodgers would hold on. Tanner Scott would hold on to get his 17th save. Dodgers win by a score of 7-6. Eric Lauer goes 5, Jack Dreyer for 1, Edgardo Henriquez for 1, Evan Phillips for 2/3 in the eighth inning. Didn't pitch too great. Tanner Scott had to come in and get a 4-out save. He was able to complete a 4-out save and get the save and the win. He didn't get the win, but he got the save. Dodgers get the win. And that was that. Eric Lauer goes 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He allowed 1 home run. Overall, wasn't a crazy good start from Lauer, but kind of continues his trend of pitching good enough, getting deep into the game, giving the Dodgers a chance. His 7th win in a Dodger uniform. Gave up 4 earned runs, but he went 5 innings pitched. He struck out 6. He only walked 1. Another solid start from Lauer. Another solid day at the office from him. The offense in this game, they showed up for the second straight night. Ohtani hits his 30th home run of the year, his 6th straight season with a 30 home run season. That's pretty impressive. 3rd straight 30-homer season as a Dodger. He is now 2nd in Major League Baseball in slugging percentage and OPS. He's 4th in WRC Plus with a 152 WRC Plus. And he's been great the last few weeks and obviously has season as a whole. Kyle Tucker, he ends his longest hitless stretch of his career with a double in the 4th inning to go end the 0 for 26. Teoscar had 2 extra base hits in this game as well, a double and a triple. We need Teoscar to get going, especially against left-handed pitching. We need as many right-handed bats as possible to start hitting. All right, the bullpen, Jack Dreyer and Edgardo Henriquez, they did their jobs in this game in the 6th and the 7th. They've both been very good as of late. Dreyer has a 2.92 ERA with 18 strikeouts in his last 12 innings. Then Edgardo Henriquez, he has a 2.79 ERA with 35 strikeouts in his last 29 innings. 2 guys that might end up playing a big role into the postseason, which they did not last year. They were barely used into the bullpen. All right. Evan Phillips came in for the 8th inning, and his struggles continue, unfortunately. All right, and this is where the Edwin Diaz issue does loom large because they need a right-handed reliever to step up. He could not get through that 8th inning. Since coming off the IL, he's allowed 8 earned runs and 15 hits in 13 2/3 innings pitched. Again, considering the Dodgers' 3 best relievers right now are probably Vesia, Scott, and Jack Dreyer, they need Evan as a right-handed option to figure it out. All right, Tanner Scott, he did come in to cover Phillips to get the 3rd out of the 8th, and then he got the 3 outs in the 9th for a 4-out save. So, they're going to need Phillips. I think that he will at some point because the velocity's been great this year. The sweeper looks good. I just think he's still finding his way back from Tommy John. I think he'll figure it out at some point. And will he become like the Evan Phillips of old and be like a high-leverage fireman setup guy? Maybe not, but a guy that I think you can trust. And I think it's even possible, like I said earlier, about relievers getting hot. He could struggle throughout the rest of the year, and they probably would still keep him on the roster, and he could get hot and look good in October. So that was pretty quick sum up on Game 2, but let's go to Game 3, August 19th, my birthday. That is Roki Sasaki taking on Kyle Freeland, the left-handed veteran pitcher. Kike Hernandez gets the Dodgers on the board first in this game with an RBI single to make it 1-0. Mookie Betts, great sign. He homers in the 4th inning, his 16th of the year to make it 2-0. Later on in that inning, Kike Hernandez, his 2nd home run of the year, his first since coming off the IL a few weeks ago. That makes it 4-0. In the bottom of the 4th, the Rockies would put some runs on the board against Sasaki. Adel Amador with a 2-run double to make it 4-2. In the 7th, the Rockies would come back. This is off of Alex Vesia. Sasaki was out of the game at this point. A 2-run shot off of Vesia continues his struggles, giving up some home runs as of late. Ties the game in the 7th to make it 4-4. We would go through the entire 9 innings tied up, so we got to go into extras. Dodgers have not played a lot of extra inning games this year, but they've also haven't lost one. All right, on the 10th inning, Freddie Freeman with a sac fly to left field to give them the lead. And then right after that, Mookie Betts with a good at-bat, singles into center field, his 3rd hit of the game for a little bit of an insurance run to make it 6-4. And then Tanner Scott came back out for the 10th to get his 2nd straight save, 2nd in the series in that 10th inning to get his 18th save. And the Dodgers get the win by a score of 6-4. They complete the sweep. And great series over the Rockies. The Dodgers, so Sasaki goes 5. Brock Stewart, who made his return, goes 1. Vesia for 1. 1. Jack Dreyer for 1. Kyle Hurt for 1 in the 9th inning. Looked pretty good. And then Tanner Scott got the save in the 10th. Let's talk about Sasaki. I got a lot of info on him as well. Pitched pretty good as well. Didn't go super deep into the game, but he goes 5 innings pitched. Did allow 7 hits, which is a lot. 2 earned runs. 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. No home runs allowed, which is great. I'm going to get into those numbers in a sec about Sasaki. But another solid start from him in the second half continues this really good stretch. Like I said, he did give up 7 hits, but he managed to get through some of jams and only allowed 2 earned runs. The whiffs were back in this game. Last couple of weeks, didn't have as many swing and miss games, but 18 whiffs in this game in Colorado, which is impressive. That's more than... or is that the same amount that Blake Snell had? Now I'm forgetting. But 7 were on the splitter, 3 were on the 4-seamer, and then 8 came on that slider. He's just made so many big adjustments to his game in the second half to kind of raise his floor to where now you look up, he only went 5 innings pitched, he allowed 7 hits, but he had a lot of swing and miss to get out of some jams, and overall he goes 5 innings pitched and he only allows 2 earned runs. Like, he's just raised his floor in the second half, I think. And so if you look at his numbers to kind of compare first half to second half, his ERA was 5.33 in the first half. It's 2.31 in the second half. His FIP was 5.57. It's an even 3 in the second half. His expected FIP was 4.30. It's down to 3.51. The opponent batting average was 2.47. It's down to 2.19. The opponent's slug is over 100 points difference. So it was 496 in the first half, 375 in the second half. His strikeout rate is up a little bit, up to 24% from 22%. The walk rate is basically the same, 9.4 to 9.2. But the big difference and the noticeable ones that he's made are his whiff rate is up from 28% to 33.7%. His expected slug is down from 434 to 318. All right. The massive one is the home runs and the slugging percentage, the slug, the extra base hits. So in the first half, he had 19 home runs allowed. That was 9th most among all starting pitchers in the first half. In the second half, he's allowed just 2 home runs, 12th least amount of home runs allowed from all starting pitchers. So a big improvement on the slugging. All right. Now, what's interesting is his fly ball rate has dropped 10%. So he had a 40.9% fly ball rate. It's down to 30.9 in the second half. But it's not because he's getting more ground balls, which is kind of weird. So his ground ball rate, 42% in the first half. It's 41. So you think, so what has to give? What he's done is he's increased the line drive rate has increased against him. So 16% in the first half up to 27% in the second half. So more line drives, which isn't necessarily a great thing, but you would rather line drives than fly balls, which will lead to home runs. So less fly balls, more line drives. His launch angle has dropped, his opponent launch angle from 13 degrees to 10 degrees in the second half. The number one reason for his massive decrease in home runs allowed. Less fly balls, less balls in the air, more of a line drive, just less balls way in the air that will lead to homers, okay? The increase in line drives could lead to more hits, of course, because when you think of a line drive, you think of, think of Luis Ariz, who hits the most line drives in baseball, just spraying singles all over the place. That could lead to more singles, but he also has increased the whiff rate, which could help him get out of jams, more swing and miss with those base runners. Okay, plus the fastball velocity went from averaging 97.6 to 98.9 in the second half. Okay, his splitter ranks sixth in average among all splitters at 170. Ninth in whiff rate at 35.4%. His slider, don't sleep on that pitch. It also has a 207 batting average against and a 39.5% whiff rate. I have a really good feeling about Sasaki going to the bullpen again in the postseason. I have a feeling he might even be better than he was last year when he was pretty good. But I just found all that interesting. All the numbers across the board, the whiff rate, the swing and miss, the fastball metrics have been better. But really the important thing is the slugging percentage and the home runs and the fly balls. That was one of the bigger issues with Sasaki. That has taken a massive decrease in the second half, which has been a big part of the reason as to why his production is taking a massive increase. Less fly balls, the launch angle. It's not necessarily more ground balls. That would make me much more excited. But I'd rather the line drives, I guess, than the fly balls that will lead to homers. So the next step will be to try to get more ground balls. I think he could accomplish that at some point if he could implement a sinker. Not all splitter pitchers are ground ball pitchers anyways. Yamamoto is, but there are pitchers that are more fly ball pitchers. But it's nice to see Sasaki is ironing out one issue at a time. The walks it was at first. He's gotten more swing and miss. He's cut down on those walks. Now he's taken a chip with the homers and is kind of chipped that out. So he continues to make improvements, and obviously not allowing home runs is massive. As a reliever when he eventually goes into the bullpen later this October. So great stuff from Sasaki. Let's get to the rest of this game and the rest of this series between the Dodgers and the Rockies. So for the rest of this game, I said earlier, Kike Hernandez 2 for 4 with a home run, 3 RBIs. Mookie Betts, he went 3 for 5 with a home run and 2 RBIs, including a really big hit in the 10th inning for some insurance. Kyle Tucker, he had 2 hits, which we love to see. Just had a big talk about him, obviously. Brock Stewart looked really good in his first inning off the IL. That could be big with the bullpen. Vesia, he did give up a big home run in this game. He has a 5.68 ERA in his last 12 innings. There are not many pitchers on the Dodgers I trust more than Vesia, so I think he'll get it figured out at some point, but it is something to keep an eye on. That he has struggled really since like the month of June or July. He has not been that great for a while now, but still has great numbers overall in the season, and I think that he will get that ironed out. When the calendar turns to September, I think, we'll feel a lot better about him. But Jack Dreyer, Kyle Hurt, Tanner Scott, they all did their jobs. Good win and a great sweep. The offense looked good. The bullpen still had some issues, but were able to do enough late in the game, and they got some good starts out of Snell and Sasaki, and even Lauer did enough. All right, so Dodgers are actually 7-3 in their last 10, surprisingly. The only unfortunate part is those 3 losses came to the Brewers. If they would have just split that series, did their due diligence, and split the series 1-3 out of 4, they would be in a much better situation. But they're 1.5 games behind the Brewers for the best record in baseball. I think the Brewers are currently destroying the Mariners, so that might go to 2 games in a couple hours. But like I said, the season series loss to the Brewers could be a problem. They need to actually pass them to be first in record. Can't just tie them now. That could come back to bite them. But, if they could get hot and pass them up, we might not have to worry about it. They do currently, though, have a 2.5 game lead over the Braves for the 2 seed, which is also important. And they will play the Braves next week in Atlanta. The Braves took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers earlier this year. So a sweep would be nice to win the season series as well. I think that if they just win 2 out of 3, and then the season series is tied up at 3 apiece, then I guess it goes by who scored more runs or something like that. But we'll have to see how that plays out. But that'll be a big series. At the end of the day, getting the one of the 2 top seeds is really a priority. You would prefer the 1 seed because that'll give you home field advantage throughout, especially in the NL. They're going to have if they have the best record in the NL, they're going to have the best record in baseball. But you would think, I guess, the Rays are pretty close. But it's really just about getting one of the 2 top seeds. So if by some reason you can't pass up the Brewers or tie them or whatever, Obviously, you can't tie them because of the tiebreaker, but if you end up with the 2 seed, that's fine as well. And you never know. Sometimes it shakes out where a team could be the 2 seed and they end up getting an easier matchup than they would have as the 1 seed. Like, you never know. So we'll have to see how all that plays out. But if they could keep pace and just be one of the top 2 seeds, they're not really going to have to worry, stress out too much about being in the wild card series like they were last year. So the offense did start to wake up this series. We're going to have to keep an eye on this and see how they can look going forward. They are going to have to face the Pirates, who have some pretty good pitching this weekend. They won't see Paul Skeens, but they'll see some other guys that throw very hard. But I wanted to give some credit to a lot of guys that woke up in this series and have played pretty decent as of late. Mookie Betts, he went 4 for 15 in the series, with 2 extra base hits. Since his now famous August 5th date, which he started to heat up last August 5th, and he did this August 5th as well. In 14 games since August 5th, he's hitting .315 with a .351 on base, a .537 slug, and an .888 OPS. That's a .144 WRC plus. Please stay hot, Mookie Betts. Andy Pages, who we know is probably the Dodgers' most streaky hitter, he went 5 for 14 in this series. In the months of June, he had a .662 OPS, and in July, he had a .749 OPS. A lot of his best numbers came in April and May. But in his last 15 games, he is hitting .288 with a .354 on base, .475 slug, an .828 OPS, and a .130 WRC plus. He's had a very nice season, even with his up and down streakiness. 20 home run season, 119 WRC plus, a 4-win player, 4 FWAR, 12th best in baseball. So when you combine the defense and the 15 to 20% better than league average bat, he is a very valuable player. Freddie Freeman, 6 for 12 in this series with 3 extra base hits. Since July 25th, so going on a month now almost, Freddie is hitting .345 with a .372 on base. That's amazing. But the only negative is he's only slugging .391, and he has 0 home runs. He has yet to hit a home run in the second half. All right. So breaking out with some extra base hits is great to see in this series. Would like to see him get back to hitting some homers and get to a 20-homer season, which I think he will. 5 home runs left in the season. But Freddie is not much of a power hitter in this point in his career. I should say home run hitter, because he does hit for extra base hits. So would like to see him get closer to the 20 home run mark. But the average and the on base, and even though he hasn't had the slug, you still look up and he's still a top 20 hitter in the game because of what he's done. Basically since the calendar turned to May, he's been incredible. And then Max Muncy as well. He went 3 for 9 in the series with a homer. He has a .305 on base in the second half. That's very low, especially for Muncy, but he's slugging .527 in that time. In his last 7 games, he's hitting .300 with a .348 on base, an .800 slugging percentage. .800, that's not OPS. And an .1184 OPS, 195 WRC plus. So he's been raking the last week. Would love to see him really turn it on and look like he was more in the first half, although he has had a fairly good second half as well. Another great season for Max Muncy. 25 home runs on the season. So that's pretty much it from this series. A lot of talking points about Diaz and Tucker and all the guys that played well in the series. Dodgers will head home for a quick homestand versus the Pirates before they go back on the road to Detroit and Atlanta. Yoshinobu Yamamoto will take the ball tomorrow night against Bubba Chandler, young throwing flamethrower of the Pirates. Tarek Skubal will be on the mound Saturday night against Jared Jones, another guy that throws super hard. No pitcher announced for the Pirates Sunday, but it'll be Blake Snell for the Dodgers. So a great pitching series for the Dodgers. No reason that they can't sweep this series, and no reason that they can't get a series win. So that's all I have for you guys. My camera is about to die. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. I'll see you guys this weekend to recap the Dodgers and the Pirates. Have a good rest of your week, everybody.